The standard advice was to actually speak to 2-3 alums per school. I ended up speaking to 10 alums. I spoke to first 3 alums and I got the generic responses. With every alum interaction, I took insights from the previous interactions and went deeper into those areas. So by that time, I came to like 5th, 6th alums. I had very pointed questions that was very deep and aligned to my goals. So the insights that I was able to get were super clear that I was able to add to my application that nobody else had. The way I prepared, I think what helped me was for every point in the resume, I wrote a 1-page story, like a script. I tried to recall what happened before, what happened during, and what happened after, and what are some of the things that they did. So any form of questions, any cross-questioning, I had enough content to actually answer.
Welcome to another episode of Crack The MBA show. Our guest today is Vyshak Iyengar, who is a first-year student at London Business School. Vyshak completed a bachelor's degree in computer science from VTU in Karnataka. Joining Accenture Tech, Vyshak secured a rare transfer to the strategy practice without an MBA. While working with Accenture for 6 years, Vyshak founded a non-profit Blufin Foundation, which is a sports foundation focused on parasports and grassroots sports. Outside work, Vyshak also led technology and startup initiatives for the Member of Parliament in Bangalore South. At LBS, Vyshak has served on the executive committees of the VC Club and the Cricket Club. Vyshak is interning with Lars Nielsen, a value operator turned investor. Post his summer internship with BCG in Dubai, Vyshak has plans to pursue an exchange program at Kellogg, followed by GBE in South America. Vyshak went on a 10-day Saudi trek during spring break and will be doing MBAT in France next. Welcome, Vyshak. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Nupur. Thank you for such an amazing introduction. Super happy to be here with you.
Pleasure is all mine, and the introduction only reflects your achievements, and that too a fraction of them, so I can hardly be credited for that. All right, Vyshak, we do have a tradition here, so at the start, can you tell our audience a fun fact about yourself?
Yeah, this is the hardest. I'm always wondering, this keeps coming at LBS as well for a lot of classes, and I keep wondering what to actually share, but I have one that I finally figured out. So you know that I run Blufin Foundation, which is a sports foundation where we help kids build career in swimming. But the fun fact is I can't swim. It's pretty funny, I think so.
Yeah, the irony is not lost on me for sure. Yeah. Hopefully soon. And you picked up a lot of new things at LBS. So who knows, maybe swimming's one of those.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Awesome. And Vyshak, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and the important influences you've had growing up?
First of all, I had a terrific childhood, thanks to my parents. It was a very humble upbringing. I did most of my schooling in Tirupur town in Tamil Nadu, and then from high school onwards, it was in Bangalore. It was an ordinary low-income, middle-income families, same hardships that we followed. But our family as a whole, we went through 2 major transformations. During my entire childhood, when my dad was progressing and had a career, we saw our family situation progress with his career opportunities. A big shift was also during my Accenture job when I got this big promotion to Accenture strategy and my salary going up really well. We finally saw what a comfortable life meant. And these experiences for me made me really value what career opportunities can do for a family. And more importantly, I started to really value opportunities on its own and how not to give up any small opportunity, to take every opportunity seriously and the impact that it can have on people's lives. So that's about my childhood and things that influenced me.
Yeah, wow. I can also sense a lot of perseverance and resilience that you've had through the journey, you and your family both. So that's great. Vyshak, have there been any winning habits that have led to all your successes in various areas, right? Like including getting sponsored by your employer for the LBS MBA, starting such an amazing nonprofit, and just the numerous other things you've done?
I genuinely believe that I am a product of a lot of kind people and their kind gesture. I am where I am today because there have been a lot of kind people who have actually helped me at critical points in life that has actually made real impact. But it's not going to be very helpful, I guess, or tangible for anybody listening to it. But there are 2 main takeaways, at least, that I believe what has worked for me is that number 1 is hard work. I think there is no replacement for hard work, and I work really, really hard.
Can you give me an example of like a time when you worked really hard and made something happen?
For example, I think the latest was during my BCG recruitment. I started my prep late. But the entire December, while I was in Bangalore, I hardly met anybody else. I never went out. I was there in my room doing 12 to 14 hours a day of case prepping, right, for an entire month. And even during Lars part-time that I'm working right now, every small gig that he gives me, I put in an extra effort. I make sure that I deliver more than he asks for, push till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. that if it requires, and, prioritize working hard more than anything else. So for me, this has really worked for me. I think people see the hard work that comes through, and then they really value more than actually delivering or being smart. The second, I think, is to always ask. There's a saying that has been stuck with me from a very long time, that the answer is always no unless you ask. So one thing that I've learned is to shamelessly ask for whatever you want. I think my whole transfer with Accenture happened because I asked, and I fearlessly asked one of the global CEOs at Accenture. I can share the story if you have time, but then
Yeah, please do.
So I was with Accenture Tech. I was part of L2 support team. I was solving tickets for a living. Not a great job. But what I did during that time was to build a deck on how Accenture could catch up with IBM. And I cold emailed that to the global CEO. He loved what I built. He gave me 30 minutes of his time. During that time, we discussed about the idea. And at the end of the call, I told him that Accenture strategy in India is a post-MBA role, even for an analyst. And I asked him if he can help me get into it. He said he'll see what he can do. He actually wrote to the India head. There was a big thing that happened at Accenture. They actually gave me policy exception, and they finally moved me into Accenture strategy. I was 23 when I moved into a post-MBA role. I was probably one of the youngest there at that time.
Wow, I love that story. And it just goes to show the point that you were trying to make, right? That if you don't ask, it's always a no. And
Yep.
I also really like the anecdote you mentioned with hard work and also the trait, because as you rightly said, it's not about being the most talented in the room, right? It's about how much effort you're willing to put in to realize your potential. And I know you're fond of cricket because you've also been on the exec committee. So just taking a cricketing example, right? Vinod Kamli, when he came in, right, he was touted as being super duper talented. But then I think from whatever I've read, it's the attitude which didn't help him realize his true potential. And on the other hand, when we look at somebody like Virat Kohli, right, it's with all the hard work and effort and, just the kind of success he's had. So definitely, and it's a controllable. Talent may not be a controllable, but hard work is absolutely a controllable.
It's very interesting. This whole thing came together so beautifully for me in my mind and belief in this thought. I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Anand Mahindra 2 weeks ago. He was kind enough to give me time. And then he was telling me, if you dream big, take risks, and actually work hard, the universe will favor you and make sure that whatever you want to achieve will happen. And I think this is what has happened to me in my life, I guess, right? So although there have been a lot of important people in my life who's come, I think, probably the universe has favored me in some way.
Yeah. So it's also the universe is conspiring to make your dreams a reality, which is amazing. And I think a lot that our listeners can also learn from that. And Vaishak, in college and beyond, you've been involved in multiple social entrepreneurship ventures and general social impact ventures. So can you speak about maybe one of those and how you became involved in it, and what has been your motivation to be a part of such ventures?
I started volunteering with Let's Be the Change during my first year of undergrad. One of my very close friends started this nonprofit. His name is Anirudh, and the organization is called Let's Be the Change. The idea was very simple. So there are a lot of garbage dumps in Bangalore. The idea is we go there, clean it up, beautify it, so that people stop throwing garbage there. Started as one few activities, and then now it has become into a very large organization. The entire undergrad year, whenever I had time, I'd just go volunteer with him and help clear up garbage dumps. For me, this experience was very profound, and it got me into social impact, because to be able to see, morning you enter the location, there's garbage dump. By the end of the day, you leave. It's a beautiful place, painted. There are people look at their chairs, and then, next day you come, people are sitting there. It's extremely empowering that even we can actually create change. We have the ability to create change that we always wanted to, right? That got me into this whole social impact space, and that got me instilled a lot of bias for action, not to just be person who's outside and giving commentary, rather than getting my hands dirty and getting things done. During this time, I met Sharat Gaikwad, who's now a co-founder of Blufin, and a couple of other friends who we started this with. Sharat's story was super inspiring. He was born without his left hand, but he joined swimming by accident and ended up changing his life. So our motivation was, can we create more such Sharat stories? Can we create talents out of nothing? And that's where Blufin was born. So we started with teaching 60 kids from low-income background, kids who've never seen a swimming pool in their life, give free swim training. We've been doing that last 5 years now. We've now trained 107 kids. 30 of them are now doing freestyle. Few of them have started competing at club level, hopefully in the state championship next year. We've also started supporting 7 international athletes. 4 of them are para swimmers. 2 of them have actually represented the Asian Games that happened recently. So it's been pretty exciting journey with social impact. That's something that I'm still continuing to contribute, and I hope to contribute as well wherever my career takes.
Yeah, very exciting. And I just can't even imagine people swimming without limbs, right? It can be hard enough even with all your limbs intact. And I just can't even imagine without even one missing limb.
So what I've seen is that for them, sport and swimming is not just sport for them, it's a source of confidence. It's a great leveler that it gives them confidence that they can do what everybody else can do. So if you see these kids are so happy and confident, and it's incredible what simple sport can do to people. And this is something that is hooked into doing more for Blufin, and we have had incredible support from the ecosystem as well.
Okay, very nice. One thing which is unusual is, Vyshak, to see you continue your involvement with the organization, even during your MBA, because a lot of times people's involvement with past organizations fizzles out because
Right.
the MBA is just really hard to keep up with, right? So, what motivates you to keep doing it, and how do you carve out time for it?
Yeah, to be honest, it is difficult because MBA is pretty stressful. It takes a lot of time with so many things happening. But for me, this is important. Working on my nonprofit, working on the social causes is something that gives me energy and happiness. For me, it's a source of recharging as well. What I've learned over time, at least, it was a LBS journey. I think we'll probably be speaking later, but then it has been difficult journey of me being lost and gaining control of my life here. And one of my important things that helped me gain control was to learn to say no and prioritize on things that really matter to me. I think I'm being able to do that better now by saying actually no to a lot of things. So I say no more than I say yes to be able to do things that I want at LBS.
Understood. I can't imagine you saying no because, I've always just known you as the person who's always like, yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll do that. More, 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 taking on more. So it's nice. I'm glad you're watching out for yourself.
That's been one of the biggest learnings for me here at MBA.
Okay, very cool. All right. And now moving to admissions, right? So, Vaishak, as an alum of Crack the MBA, can you share your experience of working with CTM and also what led you to choose CTM?
Yeah. So the experience has been incredible. So this is my 7th year of applying to a business school, as you know, right? So I've worked with every consultant in India under the sun you can think of over the years. For me, what stands out for you is that you really care and you're committed. I think because you care makes a huge difference in the experience for us because there is no push from us, or there is no sense of insecurity whether, is my consultant committed? Is the help that I'm getting actually worthy of it? Because I don't know how much time you're putting in our effort. So because you're really committed, it makes a huge difference. It eases a lot of anxiety because the entire application process is so stressful. To have someone that you can go to and to have someone that you really trust makes a huge difference. And I was glad that you were in that position for me in the journey. I thank you for that. The second is the process. It was so incredibly laid out. Like I said, I know hard work is important for anything to be successful. I think your process ensured that all of us worked hard by default. It was so rigorous. It was important. I think the way that we had the process, the way we had mechanism of a weekend that we had to submit to schools every weekend, and the fact that there was no time for you to actually relax, you need to be on your toes all the time, made a lot of difference. I think the third was those questionnaires. I think there was one biographical questionnaires and the other one was the application questionnaires, made a huge difference to me. I took them really, really seriously. I don't know, I think I even mailed you. I spent a week working on that. I gave it my everything for biographical questionnaire. I told you, I think I mailed you during that. I even went back and hugged my mom once. What I learned, I think it comes down to one thing in life is you get how much you give. I gave my everything for the biographical question, both the questionnaires, and they were incredibly helpful for me in the entire journey. It made me first be self-aware and reflect and refresh my memory about my life journey. It was super, super important because it helped me come very authentic in my application. It was who I am. Also, in the interview process, the feedback that I also got was that the interviewer liked me because I was honest, I was passionate. And then all of that, if you actually decode, it comes down to me being authentic and giving everything for those questionnaires. That made a big difference. And thank you for that.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Vaishak. Yeah, definitely. I think being authentic in the process and just putting in the effort can really, really pay back later. And it also helps through the MBA process, is what I hear.
This is pretty funny, but I think it'll be very useful for everybody that's working with you. The first time that I got your feedback, I did not open till at least for 4 days. I was so scared looking at all the feedback. I thought that I was pretty bad. I'm not getting into any of the schools. And I'm sure people working with you will, for the first edit that they get from you, is going to feel the same. But over time, I kind of understood why you did what you did. The intent was not to criticize, but the intent was to get better. And moment I understood that, it made much more easier. So I'd go look at every feedback. Okay, these are the things that I could make better, put effort, and then turn around. So I think it is important for people working with you to understand that the feedback can be detailed, and probably more critical is not to criticize you, but make you better and carve out that story. Over time, what was so magical was, I could actually see in front of my house how every essays, the stories that we were trying to build beautifully carved out in the third and fourth version. So my only advice to people working with you is to just close your eyes and trust the process.
Awesome. Thanks for that great advice, Vaishak. Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think it's also a helpful reminder to me to also set that context with candidates at the beginning. Because I remember one time, after we were done with the submission, I emailed the candidate that, yeah, I love this essay. And the person was like, what? You never said that when we were iterating on it. I was like, yeah, that's because I was only focused on how can we make this better at that time. And I'm genuinely looking at it as a story.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, awesome. All right. So, Vaishak, I also want to talk a little bit about the candidate pool that you hail from, right? It's one of the most overrepresented candidate pools with Indian male engineers. And even within that, the fact that you don't come from an IIT, did that lead to insecurities? And also the fact that you come from Accenture, right? And there's like a lot of candidates applying from Big Four, from Accenture, EY, and all of these firms. So, how did you manage to overcome all of these barriers to have success?
So I will be lying if I say I did not feel insecure. The first 3 to 6 months was pretty hard because people come from international experience. They have big brands like McKinsey's on their resume. They've done same amount of stuff pre-MBA. And on top of that, and it's probably my insecurity as well, LBS manages to choose a lot of affluent people as well. So in my mind, I was looking at people are smarter than me, people are ambitious than me, and they're also richer than me, right? So it was super hard, and I was lost at some point. I really hated the journey. But what I realized was that everybody were going through the same journey. We were so lost in the journey that we forgot our past and what we have done to come here. So it was helpful to actually remind myself where I come from, and I'm no lesser than anybody else here and truly deserve my spot, number one. Number two was I was initially trying to network at volumes. I wanted everybody to be close to me, and I thought it's not really practical in an MBA. I went from going at volumes to actually focus on niche group of people that I really care, I really like, and there is genuine love and affection with each other, and everybody else becomes weak ties, right? So a big reminder in MBA, I think you know, is to have a set of people that works for you, and everybody else will become weak ties, because I've seen this approach that people use where people go very crazy on networking. They want strong ties everywhere, but they get lost in the process. For me, so what I told myself is, if I reach out to them on LinkedIn in the future, if they respond, that's enough, right? I don't want them to be my best friends. It is absolutely okay. But interestingly, what has happened is, because I stopped chasing people, right? Now I've started building a lot more connects, because now I genuinely want to make friends. I don't want to build a network. And that small change in approach has actually really worked. And over time, probably BCG also helped me gain some amount of security. So early success with my recruitment was also very crucial in gaining confidence as well. I'll not say no to that. And the journey is getting better with time at LBS. right?
Yeah.
So the first 6 months versus the last 6 months has been completely different. And I think it takes time for anybody who's starting the journey now. The first few months is not the reflection of what you're going to have in the MBA. But what I see is in my cohort, most of them had a similar experience because they're in a new city, new set of people, and they're in a society that they were never before, because this is just, 500 overachiever people, right? So, and extremely passionate people. So it's a different social experiment on its own that I see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. And yeah, and I can totally understand the imposter syndrome that you and many of your classmates have been going through, right? It's real. Stepping back a little, right? I want to look at it from an admissions lens as well, right? With you coming from an overrepresented candidate pool, how did you manage to stand out within this candidate pool? And perhaps if you'd like, you could also maybe bake in the testing angle within this if you'd like.
So, understand the question correctly. What made my application stand out?
Given you're from an overrepresented candidate pool, like historically people have feared that if they're not from IIT, if they're not from, say, some VCP or MBB background, it's hard to crack top schools like LBS unless you have like a 750, 760 GMAT. So, like, given all of those considerations, how did you manage to stand out?
Yeah. And I had an average GMAT with the 710 as well, right? So, I mean, I was not checking any box for a top business school. I can only say what I think worked for me. But, what I realized after meeting a lot of people is everybody thinks that they know how admission works, but in reality, nobody knows, especially among the guys who've had an admit. But this is what I believe worked for me. I don't know what really happened behind the scenes. So because I did not have anything that they're really looking for in terms of the brands and the score, I focused heavily on showing outside of work my extracurriculars. So the two things. One is to actually show a lot of purpose. I carved out my story that actually had purpose in life, and everything right from what I did before MBA to post MBA long-term goals were in a perfect alignment, right? I think I spent a lot of time carving that story out. Number two is to focus more of my extracurricular activities, both my activities with the member of parliament and activities with a nonprofit. I focused a lot of stories on that, and I think it really helped. The third, I think what worked with LBS was a lot of alum interactions. The standard advice was to actually speak to 2, 3 alums per school. I ended up speaking to 10 alums. I spoke to first 3 alums and I got the generic responses. With every alum interaction, I took insights from the previous interactions and went deeper into those areas. So by that time, I came to like 5th, 6th alums. I had very pointed questions that was very deep and aligned to my goals. So the insights that I was able to get were super clear that I was able to add to my application that nobody else had. So
Can you give me an example of what that looks like?
for example, I had insights about, let's say, the research that professors did, right? So people usually talk about courses and professors. I went a level deeper in saying that the research of what professors did, and this is something that aligns with my interest. The second was during my interactions, I came across Wheeler Institute, and that alum actually connected me to the director of Wheeler Institute. I had the conversation and I put that conversation in my application, right? And from what I know, LBS loves candidates who love them. So they really want you to care that LBS is your dream school, and all of these smaller insights really give you an edge. So I had spoken to 10 alums. I had spoken to the director of Wheeler Institute. I had 5 alum referrals, and I think I should thank Giri Keshavan as well. He was pretty crucial in the journey. He was very kind enough to give a lot of advice. I think he was on your show as well. He was very, very crucial in my journey. He even gave me a referral. He has this thing where he recommends 5 people every year. And interestingly, that year, all 5 got in. So I think doing those touch points, you don't know who you're speaking to and what they can actually do to your journey. So it was important. And I did that for every school, right? So even with Tuck, I'd spoken to a lot of alums. I even had a conversation with the director of government center at Tuck. So there was a lot of traction there as well. So I think it's important to not just name drop professors for the sake of it. What would probably help is to go deeper and actually put an effort and show that you really care about it.
Okay. Wow, this is fantastic. Thanks, Vaishak. And you spoke about activities and how you over indexed on the activities that you'd been involved with. So,
Yeah.
how important are extracurricular activities and community service initiatives? I often get asked this question as well, and
Yeah.
specifically from applicants who are concerned they haven't done anything in that area, specifically since graduating from college. So, can you speak to the importance of these things? Why are they important, and what can candidates do to mitigate the presence of activities?
I think they're important, at least from all my classmates that I've seen. Everybody have some form of community services. There are even folks that are part of United Nations and they've done something there as well. So pretty inspiring. I think they're also important because for me, especially from the classroom point of view, in those interactions, a lot of diverse insights matter. I think that's what probably LBS is also looking for. So when we are having discussions and professors initiate discussions, there's a lot of learning that comes from my peers in the class. In fact, it's so cool that for every class, for every topic, there's always one person who's already worked on that. So to show that you have diverse set of work experiences reflects the diverse set of perspectives that you can bring to classroom and your study group. Right. I think the value that I have seen from that is through learning in the classroom. The way that they can do, I think the easiest is to start a nonprofit, but don't start a nonprofit for the sake of it or for B school, because entrepreneurship is a very hard journey. You're not going to push enough to see success. But if you really care about a cause, I would highly recommend to go for it because it's pretty easy to start. There's a lot of ecosystem that supports good causes. Once you're in the game for a year or two, you can raise CSR funding. A lot of companies that fund these causes. So it's easier to build that, and having social entrepreneurship really helps. The second is you can always intern. All nonprofits are short on resources, short on people because they don't have enough funding. So your ability to contribute would help. I think one of my friends who joined a nonprofit as an intern, he worked in so much that a couple of years later, he was actually one of the co-founders. Now he went in, he helped them get more funding, get more programs on board. He's now the co-founder of the nonprofit, right? So there are so many ways to do community services. I think the most important thing is intent, right? Pick a cause that you really care about.
Okay, that's helpful. And what about somebody who's applying, say, this year and they don't have a lot of activities on their resume? If they start something now, does it make them look bad that they're doing it in the year that they're applying?
I actually don't know, to be honest. Uh, but I don't know how to navigate that. But I think having some experience, even if you started late, is better than having no experience.
That's what I tell them as well.
So at least have something that shows his community services, right? But what would probably help is if you pick a cause and do that both outside and inside the work. So at Accenture, I was able to do a lot around skill development as well, although I was doing outside. So if you show that, then it shows that you care about the cause and you're not doing for the sake of it. When you show the same cause in multiple touch points. So probably when you're starting late, the best way, I'm just thinking out loud, is to actually do it in multiple places so that you really show that you care about the cause.
Yeah, that's a wonderful tip. So thanks for sharing that as well. And Vaishak, speaking about the LBS essays, right? What are the elements that give the LBS essays their wow factor?
For me, I believe in my story, I had a purpose. I had picked a cause, I picked a theme, which was skill development. And my entire story from what I did pre-MBA to what I wanted to do post-MBA and long term was in this single straight theme. And that was focused. Also, when I was writing my story, there was a lot of other things that I wanted to say, but it was also important to focus on what really matters for the essay and what the story and the overall theme than versus showing volumes of stories. So my entire theme was around skill development. So I only highlighted the stories around this from my past and connected that to what I wanted to do immediately post MBA and then how I'm going to contribute to my long-term goal. So my short-term goal was to get into public sector consulting, hopefully focusing on skill development, which give me insights on what's happening in the outside India perspective and take that learning over long term and go back to India, right? So that I can solve for skill development issues in India. So coincidentally, now I'm going to BCG and in Dubai's public sector. So I'll be doing public sector consulting. So whatever I'm writing in my essays kind of getting manifested right now. So
that is fantastic. That is the universe conspiring again. All right, lovely. Thanks for the tip. And Vaishak, how important is it to show international motivation through the application and the essays?
while I was applying I thought it was BS, but after coming here, I realized that it is super important, especially when you're coming to schools like LBS, where you're interacting with people from 60, 70 countries. I think the first thing that looking at is, can you hold conversations? Can you be sensitive with people from different geographies? So although I'd never traveled outside India, I was able to show the LBS, the international exposure, through my work at Accenture, my interactions that I've had with people, the challenges that I've had with international people. So I was able to get through by just showing my ability to interact and my past experience of handling people from outside India, because that's what you're doing all throughout your LBS journey, right? In my study group, we have like people from 6, 7 different countries that you have to work with every day. So there are a lot of challenges that comes around this. So having that exposure before really helps here.
Okay, understood. And Vyshak, LBS also has video essays, right? So could you share your experience with the video essays?
Yeah. To be honest, I did not take that very seriously. What I did was, for the video essay, I took as late as possible so that my preparation to the real interview also helped for the content. In my opinion, I might be completely wrong. I don't know if content is what they're looking for in a video essay, right? They have an entire detailed interview that they have scheduled to know you better. So in a video essay, in my opinion, what they're looking for is if you can speak, have conversation, are you pleasant, and can you present well, right? So the only thing that I had in my mind when I went to a video essay, that is no matter what happens, I'm going to sit straight, smile a lot, be confident, and talk as clearly as possible. I remember it was for LBS or Oxford video interview. I was saying random words. It made no sense, but I continued to smile and be confident. And I still had admit for both colleges. So I'm assuming a hypothesis is true, that it's not content they're looking for, is your ability to communicate and how you come across while presenting.
Okay.
And also the preparation for LBS, there was a lot of questions that I found online, bunch of sample questions. They proved to be accurate. There were no surprises. So the questions that I prepared for is what I got during my video essays. And I think those questions that you find online should be enough, I guess.
Okay, so that's helpful as well to look for that. All right, that's cool. And you talked about a very detailed interview experience, right? So can you speak to the LBS interview?
Yeah, so I had an amazing experience. I interviewed with a senior vice president at a startup in Bangalore, a guy who had, I think, 15, 20 years of experience after LBS. He was kind enough to invite me to his office. We had 1 hour of great conversation. I call it detailed and difficult was because he's been there, done that. So he can catch BS whenever you just say it's very interesting because when you're interviewing with an adcom, they don't really understand the industries or the experiences. You can get away with saying a lot of things. Here you can't, right? So you need to be really accurate in what you're saying, and any form of fluff that you end up getting, they just catch that, right? So it was very important to know what you're saying. Important to clearly explain what you've done without really sharing some random stuff to just hype it up. And also because this is a 1 hour interview, they can really get in detail about every question, right? So they can ask a lot of follow-up questions. They have enough time to go deeper into any areas that they want to go. So you need to be really prepared about everything, right? Everything about yourself, about your experience. The way I prepared, I think what helped me was for every point in the resume, I wrote a 1-page story, like a script. I tried to recall what happened before, what happened during, and what happened after, and what are some of the things that they did. So any form of questions, any cross-questioning, I had enough content to actually answer. So for me, that really helped during the interview process.
Okay, cool. And LBS also has a case study that they ask you to work on through the interview, right? Can you speak about what that looks like?
I actually don't remember my case. It was pretty complex. I think I screwed up because it took me almost 10 minutes to understand the question, and he had to explain twice. And I ended up presenting something. I'm hoping it was fairly okay. So to everybody listening, it's okay to screw up a little bit of your case studies. But what really helped me during the case interview, on YouTube, there's a bunch of videos from Bain that have mock interviews. So the mechanics of casing was very important there. How do you hold conversation? How do you write? What kind of questions that you ask? And how do you present after you make a case? I think from what I saw, they're only looking for your ability to present, ability to solve problems, and also the ability to communicate really well. So if you can be a little confident, and I think they even challenge you a little bit to see how you handle feedback. So if you're respectful and present in that moment, I think it should work really well. I missed adding one point during my interview preparation was the impact that you had during my interview. I don't know if you remember, I bombed our mock interview really bad. You had to give extra 3 hours. We had 3 1-hour slots to go through each answers. That made a big difference for me. So although I had enough content, I didn't know how to say it and what to say and what works and what doesn't work. And then the extra length that you went for me made a big difference. I'm very grateful for that, because after that, I had amazing clarity on what to really speak and how to really speak, because the first time I was saying a lot of things that made no sense. I didn't know how to handle those conversations because I had so much stories, so many things to say. To be able to leave out all the non-important stuff and just say the one that matters was very important, and I want to thank you for that as well.
Yeah, it was always my pleasure. You'd done so much, so that's why we were like looking how to focus. Yeah, definitely. And Vaishak, speaking about once you got in, right? How did you finance your LBS MBA?
So my financing was a little complex. I was sponsored by Accenture first. So that covered my tuition fees. And then I took a loan from an Indian bank for my living expenses. I took a loan of 75 lakhs. And then because I got into BCG, I had to give up my Accenture sponsorship, which Accenture is cool about. I had to take an additional loan of 110,000 pounds or 1.1 crore from Prodigy Finance. Prodigy gives non-collateral loans.
At what interest rate is that?
For me, it was around 12%.
Okay. And what about the Indian loan? What interest
Around
rate?
9%.
9%?
Yeah.
Okay. Understood.
Finance their entire LBS through Prodigy. So
Okay.
I think Prodigy could be a great option.
And that's at 12%.
12% is very expensive. I didn't have a choice, because if you have enough collateral and if you can provide collateral for the entire 2 crores, the Indian banks are much better because they offer a cheaper interest rate. Prodigy is expensive, but it's non-collateral, so that makes the job pretty easy.
Yeah.
The two things that work, one is Prodigy, and then there's the other one called Lendwise. For the US, I think there's also something called Zolve that has started. They help with student financing. I think that could also be an option for people going to the USB schools.
Okay, that's helpful. And Vaishak, can you also speak about how obtaining a student visa for UK works?
It was pretty straightforward. I don't know if I can say this on record, but I hired an agent. So he kind of helped me with all of the documentations and all of that. But UK visa it's getting harder, especially for our year. We had around 10-15 Indians who were given not straightforward. Their visas were rejected. It was very unheard of for UK. We had someone come after 3 weeks of the uni starting. So my advice is, although, historically, it's been easy for people to get UK visa, things are getting harder. It was very hard for our year. I don't know what's going to be for this year. So probably start your visa as early as possible and look for guidance. For me, my agent was able to clearly give me a list of documents that are important and what are documents are important. For me, the level of detailing that is required, I was not aware of that, and I would probably made mistakes. So to seek help, I would strongly recommend. And the fact that I thought having an LBS brand would be easy and would be helpful, it doesn't matter. It was pretty funny because my visa was mentioned not straightforward, and they had to interview me. And the interview was like any MBA school. They asked me why LBS, why MBA. They even asked me saying, if you got into Oxford, why are you going to LBS? So they don't know much about LBS. I think LBS outside of the corporate circle, nobody really knows. So do not take the visa process lightly and start as early as possible. So
okay, that's a helpful tip. And Vaishak, moving to once you were at LBS, right? Can you speak about how the London location enhances the LBS MBA experience?
I think it's beautiful that LBS is in London. Two folds. One is London is a beautiful city to live in. There's so much happening. The city has a lot of character. So to be able to live in such a vibrant city itself is a bonus. I mean, it's also up to a lot of people, right? Some of them want campus life. You can't expect a campus life in LBS. It's right in the middle of the city. There's not really campus. There are like a couple of buildings, right? But then you get to live the London life, which is fun on its own. The second, in terms of career opportunities, I think this is one city that has literally all industries possible, right from tech to consulting to finance. It's very interesting that HBS did a London track, HEC did a London track to understand Europe, right? And for us, we've had multiple career tracks across all industries. And all of those tracks starts from London, right? Because every company is in just one city. And that also is so much helpful to find career opportunities in this economy, number one, and to be able to network also, right? That also results in a lot of speakers across industries to come to campus and speak, and us getting access to them.
What kind of speakers have you had access to?
So we've had people like Lars Nielsen, the one that I'm interning with. He was employee number 25 for Dropbox, a very early employee. And then he was an advisor for WhatsApp, went on to reporting directly to Travis Kalanick. And then he came to UK, started Balderton Capital and all of that. So he's a legendary Valley operator turned investor. We had Dr. Pawan Goenka come to our campus. He was the former MD and president of the Mahindra Group. We've had Leena Nair, global CEO of Chanel, come to our campus. That was incredible. We had Indian High Commissioner to come to our campus. The list goes on. It's incredible the kind of speakers we've been able to get across industries and geographies, right? So that's been pretty exciting.
Okay, that does sound fascinating. Vyshak, can you speak about housing? So where do international students generally live, and how much does housing cost, and living as well through the month?
London is expensive, super expensive. Never expected it to be this costly. So I think one advice is be prepared if you're coming to London to spend a lot of money. In terms of housing, LBS does not have any housing for the MBA students. Very few people take student accommodation. It's usually the undergrad crowd, and you don't really want to be among them. So not a lot of people take that. So everybody ends up pairing up with couple of people, 2 people, 3 people end up taking house on rent. The 2-bed, 3-bed around the LBS area. The rent goes anywhere from 1,500 a month to 2,500 a month.
Okay, and what neighborhood is this?
Popular neighborhood that people stay is in the Baker Street area, streets around LBS, and most of them in St. John's Wood. It's a beautiful area near Lord's cricket ground. So the place is beautiful. I think the houses are old. All our old broken houses, you're overpaying for them, but the locations are beautiful. And there are a lot of people who go much far away. They have housing in Wembley because the houses are nicer, much cheaper as well. But my house is just opposite LBS, and having housing extremely close to campus really helps personally for me. There's so much of things that you can be a part of. That a lot of networking activities. I can come here. I just have to cross the road, come here, 8:15, 8:30 class. I'm here quickly. So I have time to do a lot more. I get to be in campus for a longer time. So that helps meet a lot of people as well.
No, that's a great tip as well. And what's the food situation like on campus as well as off campus?
On campus food is bad. It's pretty bad. There's not much. So they have a bunch of frozen food, a lot of additives. It's there for 2-3 days. I don't like it. They have a salad bar that's the same thing every day. So in terms of on-campus food option, there's not much at LBS, but because we live in the Baker Street, the street is filled with restaurants, and then all of them give student discounts as well. So that way you have a lot of options outside of the campus.
Okay, good. I'm guessing you get all kinds of cuisines, right? Like be it Indian or whatever else you want.
Yeah.
Okay, do you get good dosa?
Good. No. So I miss South Indian food. We have to go much farther to get South Indian food. But my mom has sent me a lot of food from home. So I make dosas at home and I miss him.
Okay, cool. At least you're able to make it at home. So that's nice. Awesome. And Vyshak, what's been the biggest challenge you faced at LBS so far?
And I mentioned that earlier is the diversity coming into a new city, being in a society of overachievers, who are definitely smarter than you, more ambitious
so
than
the imposter syndrome, so to speak.
So the big imposter syndrome, right? So, and everybody faces that. The second challenge, I think, thankfully I was sponsored. So I didn't have that pressure, but you're here with a lot of loan, you're spending so much money. And the economy is bad right now. So we are seeing our employment report numbers coming down. People are not hiring as much as they were hiring before. So that is making the journey really difficult. I mean, people who are now joining this year, that is something that they should be really cautious about.
Okay, got it. And I'm guessing another challenge might also be the weather.
The weather, yeah. London is a trap because you're wondering why you're in London for the whole of winter. And when summer comes, you're like, this is the best city. And then you don't want to move. And then that whole cycle, I think, keeps falling up. The weather is pretty bad. It's always cold. It's unpredictable. Especially, the challenge is that the recruitment starts November-ish and goes on till Feb. And all throughout, the weather is pretty bad. The sun sets early. So you need motivation, but the weather does not support. So that's a whole new challenge on its own.
Yeah, so maybe it was good you were back home for the
I was
December.
back home in December, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. And Vyshak, can you speak about your activities and some of the global experiences as well. So maybe you can start out with the activities with VC Club and Cricket Club.
So the beauty about LBS, and I'm sure it's the same thing about all business school, is our ability to create our own experience that we want and based on what we want out of MBA. I have stayed pretty low on the club activities. There were other things that I wanted to do. I didn't want to organize stuff, but I want to be part of as many activities as possible. So I made sure I attended all events across the clubs, but I was never getting myself into organizing them. So I stuck to cricket club and the VC club. The cricket club because I wanted to get back to playing cricket. So what we do right now is we practice regularly with the leather ball at Lords. So that's the most exciting part. So we formed two teams now from LBS to compete at MBAT. For me, it has been a journey of realizing my ambitions and my passions in life and to be able to.
And can you tell our audience what MBAT is?
MBAT is the MBA sports tournament that's hosted by HEC. So we have, I think, across Europe, we have business schools coming in and competing. Oxford is historically winning almost every year. This year, we hope to beat that, change that. Interestingly, LBS is sending its largest contingent this year. We have, I think, around 250 people from LBS going to MBAT and competing.
250 is huge.
Massive. So usually Oxford sends that amount of number or that kind of number every year and they end up winning the trophy. So we are competing now with the same amount of number. So hopefully it's going to be LBS this year.
Superb. All the very best for that.
Thanks.
And what about with the VC Club? What kind of activities have you been a part of?
So what has happened now is our year X course have also been announced. So the first year I was part of the VC trek in India. I only helped them with organizing a VC trek to India with a bunch of fun introductions. I was not very.
What kind of companies were you guys visiting?
Accel Partners, Matrix, Chirate Ventures, big PE and VC funds in India. Now it's been postponed to end of this year. Where I want to contribute now in the second year is in the speaker series. So the first year was all about gaining as much as I can. Now I think I want to spend the second year giving back and organizing. So I think that prioritization was what I was able to make, thankfully, at LBS. So second year, I want to organize a lot of speaker sessions, get good investors, also because I've been able to intern in that space. So hopefully I'll be able to use those connections to get good people to campus. So that's what I'm doing for the VC Club.
Understood. And speaking of your internship, right? How did you land that internship and what's the role about?
So this is where it comes to me talking about always asking what you want. So Lars Nielsen, he was at Balderton Capital for 8 years. Now he started his own fund. He's an LBS alum and he's now the trustee of LBS, also chair of the endowment fund. So he does this talk every year. I think it's been last 10 years, his journey from Silicon Valley to London. What happened was he came to our campus for that talk. I waited for everybody to leave so I can have more time with him. And I was the last person to go to him. And I said that I'm going to BCG, but I want to get into startups. And I want to maximize my learning at LBS to learn about startups. And I told him that I want to be in his company just to learn startups. I don't want pay. I'd even sweep his floor if that requires. I just want to be in his company, right? I actually said that. He loved that. And then we ended up spending almost next 20, 25 minutes. I walked him down to his car, speaking about startups, about spirituality, about founder attributes. It was a beautiful conversation. He asked me to then send me my resume, and then he gave me a small task, and then started with me doing small amount of tasks like PPT building, data research, and all of that. Now it has transformed to me helping him set up a new fund. So he's setting up a secondary fund to build a pre-IPO portfolio. So I'm helping him set that fund up. So pretty exciting right now. And I think, just asking him and showing utmost intent and positivity, I guess, helps.
Yeah. And reminds me of how you manage the transition at Accenture as well. Yeah, cool. I think a lot that listeners can learn through these interactions.
Amazing. I think there's so many people that come to our campus and we just have to hustle our way to get things done. I've seen a lot of people do that as well, right? So sure hustle, even in this economy, it's possible to land the opportunities that you want.
Yeah, lovely. And Vyshak, can you speak a little bit about your Saudi trip that you just took? And also after that, if you could also talk about what GBE looks like and maybe what you're expecting to do as part of your GBE in South America.
Right. So the Saudi trek was organized by the Middle East Club. This was the first ever trek to Saudi from LBS. So it's pretty exciting. For me, I had a lot of apprehension because of the Western media version about Saudi, about Riyadh. So the kind of images that you get are different. But after going to Saudi, it was magical. I think it's an entire country with insane amount of ambition, with every citizen completely aligned with the Crown Prince's ambition of changing the country and growing. Everybody's ambitious, right? So to just have that conversation, be among that energy itself was amazing. We went to Alula and Riyadh. Alula is a old, beautiful desert. We were just in caravans enjoying the nature. And then we went to Riyadh, saw a lot of mega cities. So they have something called as Vision 2030. So by 2030, they want to transform Riyadh, and they have a bunch of goals that they want to achieve. They have 5 giga projects that's happening. They're building literally 5 different cities, each worth $50 billion. It's the scale in which they're operating, and we got a chance to witness that. It's amazing. And very interesting fact is that the Saudi Entertainment Authority gave, I think, 3,500 pounds of subsidy per person, and 48 people from LBS went there. The experience was amazing. The country is transforming. And I think the beauty about LBS and this opportunity is for us to witness our perspectives transform, all of those notions that we have, to be able to witness that transformation by experiencing them, right? So that's what I believe was truly fascinating for me.
Okay, lovely. And who knows, maybe this will also influence you to move there someday.
Because I'm interning with BCG Dubai and probably full-time will be there, most of my work will be in Riyadh. So I was also curious to know what exactly the life is going to be there. To be honest, I'm excited. I'm excited to go to that region. There's so much of work that's happening. Middle East is the place to be. And a lot of us from LBS are recruiting for the Middle East right now, especially the consulting firms. So there's more demand there, more job there, a lot of interesting work that's happening there.
Okay, lovely. And we will talk about the location aspect of recruiting as well in just a couple minutes. Prior to that, I also wanted to speak about this internship that you're doing with Lars, right? Is this like a term time internship?
We can actually schedule our week the way we want to. So there are the same courses that happens multiple times in the term, in multiple terms as well. So I have a friend who has scheduled 3 classes on Tuesday, 3 classes on Wednesday. 6 classes a week is insane, but he has managed to squeeze that in 2 days. And then he has his rest of his week off, right? So, and then, he does an internship. He's finished that. Now he's traveling every week, he's traveling to a new country, is enjoying his time right now. So the beauty is that it's extremely flexible and you can have your week the way you want to, and you can schedule the classes based on how you want to do that. And this gives a lot of flexibility to the internship. I'm doing an unpaid internship, but a lot of people in the second term are able to do paid internship with a lot of startups. There's so many opportunities that is coming in, and that also helps cover up some amount of living expenses as well. And it also adds experience to your profile. A very common trend that I've seen, I don't know about the other business schools, at least from LBS, a lot of people end up doing 3 internships, 4 internships if you can push. Right. So that gives you an incredible amount of opportunity to experience multiple industries and multiple work before you graduate. Right. I believe that is awful.
That's a boon. And for international students, they can do part-time internships. That's allowed with the visa regulations.
Yes. The BRP, they specify a certain number of hours per week that you can work.
Okay. Probably 20 or something like that, I'm guessing.
What my wallet. So it's mentioned in the BRP.
Okay.
So, and based on that, you get paid per hour and then.
Okay. And there's also this concept called block week, right? Which Giri touched upon. So is that something people leverage as well to make more time for internships? Is that something you will participate in?
I did not take any block weeks this time, but I hope to do that in the second year. So the whole concept for people who don't know, block week, it's pretty straightforward. So we have courses, 6 credit courses that happens for 5 weeks and then 11 credits for 10 weeks. In a block week, they do that in a week. So you have classes from Monday to Friday and 2 classes a day, and then you're done with an entire course in a week. And that gives you opportunity to actually free up your time elsewhere. The other interesting thing is, because it's block week, there are some professors who are practitioner-led professors. They're able to get and teach. I didn't take it, but people went crazy about brand management block week that happened, about world economic analysis, right? So then people who have been working, they just come here for a week, teach and go. And I've heard some of the block weeks are much better because they're able to get amazing professors to come teach us during that time for a week and go. So I think block week really helps. It frees up time to do other things as well.
Okay, that's great. And Vyshak, can you speak about some of the academic highlights at LBS? Maybe you could touch upon the star professors and the most popular electives.
Yeah. So the thing about LBS, I think compared to the USB school, there's not a lot of focus on academics. I think it's a lot about experiential. You're empowering you to do things and learn. So you can get away with not being very active in academics and still pass your MBA. There's a famous saying that it takes a lot more effort to fail than to pass in LBS. It's a joke, but then in terms of academics, there's not a lot of focus. It's how much you get, how much you put in, end of the day, right? I wanted to focus on academics in the second term. So I'm reading the cases, being diligent about attending classes and learning. So on the courses I really want to learn. In terms of the star professors, there's a professor of finance called Alex Sedman. He's amazing. He comes with a lot of experience. He's been an investment banker. He's now an investment committee. Pretty cool thing is he gives us coupons and trials of his portfolio companies that's happening right now. So that's pretty cool. The other professor is a professor of technology and innovation strategy, Professor Farhan Lalji. So there are a lot of these practitioner-led courses that happens and that truly mind-blowing. He has built and sold 3 companies. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's now an investor. He's building funds of funds. And he comes and then teaches about Indian strategy. And he's seen and been there and done all of that. So in every class, we end up discussing 10, 15 startups. He shares his perspectives, his experiences with them. He's invested in these companies. So he gives us more insights. For me, I'm really enjoying this course. We even had a lot of guest lectures in this course. Specifically, we had Tata Sky CEO come as a guest lecturer, shared his case. So there's this digital satellite to OTT disruption that's happening. I mean, who better than Tata Sky CEO coming in, telling us how they handled the whole disruption and what they're doing. So for me, these two has been very big highlight. The third one, I think I've completely forgot, was Professor Daniel Efron. He teaches organizational behavior. Incredible professor. The anecdotes he says, the way he shares his stories is beautiful. He's one of the best storytellers that I've seen.
Incredible. Thanks for sharing that, Vaishak. Moving to recruiting now. You mentioned that you started the recruiting process for consulting late, right? So can you touch upon what your process for BCG looked like?
Yeah, so I started late because of 2 things. One was I was sponsored by Accenture, and the second was I lacked confidence. I never thought I'll be able to get into MBBs. I'm not used to this amount of success, right? I've always settled for things, right? So I did not attend any of the first round of employee presentations or coffee chats. And then there was one moment where a thought just hit me, what if I actually made it into these companies, right? The only thing that is stopping me is just me. So I just decided to give it a shot. So I started my prep much later than everybody else. November is when I got serious about this. I think end of November is when the resume shortlist happens, and January is when the first rounds of interview goes through. So I started my case prep only December after going back home after finishing the term. I had exactly a month and a half for my interviews. But thankfully, interviews I worked really hard and then I was able to get through. And there were a lot of great resources that LBS provided that really helped me with the consulting recruitment.
Yeah, what would be examples of those great resources?
I'll just take a step back on the resume point of view. I think working on the resume now really is important because the first round of consulting recruitment is your resume shortlist. There are chances that you might not actually get an interview invite. So all that boils down to the quality of your resume. I didn't really work hard because I put a lot of effort for my application, and the similar one was shaped into a format for consulting. So one advice is to take your resume making here really, really seriously and put that effort. It helps in the recruitment as well. But I've seen a lot of people did not do that and they had to put in so much of effort. And a lot of people ended up not getting interview at all because, the resume was not up to the mark. So one thing to not ignore resume perspective for both application and for the recruitment.
Yeah, that's a helpful tip. And what kind of resources were helpful for your recruiting for the casing?
So the first was all of us at LBS got free access to Case Coach portal. So they have very valuable materials for us to learn. For me, the thing that really made difference is peer leader sessions. So we have a portal where we have peer leaders who are MBA 24s, our senior years who have actually gone through the recruitment process, are willing to help us out. So we can go there and book 1-hour slots with them, and LBS would pay them on our behalf, right? So there was incentive for both of us. And I think from what I know, I kind of literally made the max use of that. I had over 20 peer leader casing sessions, right? So think about this, right? So I had people who have cracked BCG, Bain, McKinsey's come and give casing. And the learnings that I had in that 1 hour, just probably more than how much I could ever put, right? So it's all their personal experience, the entire 6 months of experience that they've gone through, they're sharing it with me in an hour. So for me, the biggest difference was the whole peer leader aspects of things. I only cased with the peer leaders, not even with the peers.
And there's no limit to how many cases you can do with them?
So the thing is, you can't book more than 2 at a time. So what I would do is, as soon as I finished one, I just booked the next one. There were a couple of people who were really helpful. A guy called Patrick who got into Bain Berlin and Suraj who got into Kearney. They were so helpful that on WhatsApp, I would coordinate with them and then open up slots. They were so kind, to be honest. This is where I say that, a lot of kind people in the kind gesture, because I wanted to case before my interviews. I would reach out to them on WhatsApp. They would open up a slot and then they would case me just before my interview, right? However busy they were, they would just come online and case with me and go. And that gave me so much confidence for the next day. So just this whole support system that they have enabled through peer leader sessions was transformational. I believe I would credit almost 80% of my BCG success to peer leader session. The learning was incredible.
Fantastic. And Vyshak, can you speak a little bit about the location choice as well? What led you to pick BCG Dubai? And also, if you could speak about pay scales for consulting in London versus in Dubai.
Yeah. For me, I wanted to do Middle East. One is the pay is better. It's closer to home. For me, long term, I wanted to be in India. So US is much further away. London is a trap because, the pay is just enough for you to survive. You can't really finish off your student loan quickly and go back to India. So you're stuck here for the next 5-10 years. So Middle East was the only option where you get enough money, you get great work, and then, you can finish off your student loan in 2-3 years and you can go back home. So that's one. And also the economy in India, in London, in Europe and the US is really, really bad. So the only economy that's doing good right now and that's hiring from LBS is Middle East. And what was interesting is it was extremely competitive even in the Middle East, which was not the trend some years ago, right? People were not so keen on the Middle East as they are right now. It's also because of the economy, also because Riyadh is opening up. They're doing a lot of work. There's a lot of interesting work that's happening there as well. In terms of pay scale, the MBBs in London pay around 100K pounds, but the catch is almost 40-50% goes in your taxes, right? So you're left with almost nothing after your rent and your living expenses. You're literally left with nothing in London, right? So living the London life, but you're not making any money, unfortunately, right? So one of my friend is going to Roland Berger in Munich. So there are some opportunities because he had healthcare experience. So based on your experience, there are some niche opportunities that opened up outside London in the Europe. I don't think any US firms hire unless you have work permit in the US. So only other thing is Middle East. And Middle East, I don't know my numbers yet, but I'm expecting, I think 120 to 130,000 pounds. That is, and no tax.
Okay, right? So 30% on the base itself and then no tax on top of that.
And no tax. And if you go to Riyadh, it's 30% more than how much you're getting paid in Dubai.
Okay. Wow.
And in Riyadh, also the other advantage is that the living expense is much lesser, right?
Ooh,
so
nice.
You're saving more, and there's no alcohol, so you're not partying, so you're also saving that money as well. This is how the pay scale looks like. Very interestingly, there was a VC fund from India that came to hire at LBS. I think it was Bridgewater. So they were offering 1 crore base plus 1 crore bonus for full time. So,
nice.
So this kind of pay in India, I mean, I would take it right away and move to India, so that the pay is pretty good for India as well.
Okay. Good to know.
That's very encouraging.
Yeah. And can you talk about how many Indians are in your class and then also talk about where people are headed broadly?
Yeah. So 17% of our cohort are Indians.
So how many people would that be?
I think roughly around 80-90 people. Most of them will be in London and rest of them will be in the Middle East.
What kind of roles? So how many people in consulting versus in other areas?
So in consulting, a few. I think this time the consulting recruitment was not that encouraging. So BCG's acceptance rate overall at LBS was 3% of the application, right? So 6 people who are into BCG Dubai, 4 of them are Indians. So that's pretty good. A lot of tech is happening in London. So people are going to Amazon, MasterCard. They're going to a lot of startups like Revolut, GoCardless.
Okay, and this is international students?
They're international students.
Yeah. What did you say after Revolut? What startup?
GoCardless.
Okay.
Bunch of fintech startups. People are doing investment banking as well.
Okay. So how many consulting, how many banking, how many tech?
Very few actually, to be honest. If you're only talking about Indians. There are probably 15 people doing consulting, probably another 5, 10 in tech. I don't know about investment banking. I don't really follow. I don't know. I think probably a few in investment banking. There are a lot of, some of them who have private equity. So
Okay.
there are a lot of people doing private
In
equity.
London or in India?
They're all in London.
Oh, okay. So international students
Some of
are,
them-
Indian students are cracking PE.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Some of them are going back to India to do PE. What is very interesting, so we have entrepreneurship summer school. A lot of Indians have chosen not to do internship and they have some ideas that they're working on. So both of my roommates are also pursuing this path of entrepreneurship. So they have an idea, they apply. What happens is all throughout summer, you make sure by end of your summer, you're launching your product. You come with an idea, and then they have those coaching and mentoring that happens in that journey. So a lot of them are doing ESS. That is fascinating to see. I did not expect this level of entrepreneurial energy because everybody here now are talking about building something, starting up, even among the Indian community. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's nice. So what I'm hearing is that with all of these things, there are some people who are still looking for internships.
There are. So it's not as rosy as it sounds.
Okay.
Comes across. There are a lot of people who are still trying to look for internships. I
Yeah.
think most of them will end up getting probably in May for the June because startups, they don't hire 2-3 months in advance. So May is when probably most of them will end up getting their internships.
Vyshak, how do you compare and contrast your life with an LBS MBA versus if you were still in India with your old life?
Huge. I think everything changed about my life right now, to be honest. I was in India for the last 28 years. I'd not traveled outside India. Here, just in 1-2 years, I've made like almost 4 trips to India and to Saudi. I'm going to Dubai right now. I'll be living in Dubai for 3 months, then followed by 3 months in the US for exchange, and then bunch of travel that's lined up the next year when I'm back in London. Just this exposure to international travel itself is incredibly transformational. Although, we are so close to this that we don't realize our transformation, and especially the way we think and the way we are working. This I realized when I was working with Lars. He gave me a typical consulting kind of project where we do pick an industry, prioritize an industry and all of that. But then the way I did it this time, the kind of thoughts that I was able to put was actually very surprising. Even the kind of graphs I was able to present and end up with, I was very proud of what I was able to make. So I think even intellectually, because we are at lectures every day, discussing ideas, discussing strategies, we don't realize how much we have grown unless you actually are exposed to some amount of work. So for me, it was very surprising. The third is for me, because I was able to quickly finish off my consulting pressure off, gave me a lot of time to do things that I always wanted to do. Play cricket, get into startups. That's with Lars. Probably start up something if I can before MBA. That's something I really want to. And joining an MBB itself was a big thing that changed my life, right? So I never expected that I'd get this opportunity. So the fact that this opened up probably is the biggest transformation that I'll have in my life. I was just telling this to my friend a couple of days ago. He's getting into Ross. He's just starting, and I told him that MBA is the best thing that could ever happen to my life. So
Wow.
it's worth the journey.
That was going to be my next question. That an international MBA has been getting a lot of flack lately. So is it worth it?
For someone like me, it's absolutely worth it, right? So I've never been exposed to the world outside India. For someone who's not from an IIT or where I was stuck in mediocrity for all of my life, this just opens up every possible opportunity for me. Suddenly there are people who want to talk to me. Suddenly there are people that can get access to, have meetings with, and I'm taken seriously for. I think it's the world of a difference, right? So pre-MBA and post-MBA. I don't know about how it is for people who have already done everything that I wanted to do and how is it for them as an MBA. But for me, it's a big difference. And I believe LBS was necessary for me to come out of this mediocrity that I was stuck in pre-MBA.
Fair. Very cool. And Vyshak, before we complete, do you have any final advice for prospective applicants or incoming MBA students?
One thing probably, right, a lot of people who are discouraged because of their GMAT score or their background, I would recommend to go all in, to dream big and do it, because everybody thought I could never make into LBS when I was applying. I had nothing that was checking the list. So I would suggest to go all in and work very hard and leave the results to somebody else. I'm happy to speak to people, mentor them if they want, so they can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. So
that is so kind of you. And Thank you so much, Vyshak, for sharing so freely and openly and really amazing things that you've shared. Really, really appreciate you taking out the time.
Well, thank you, Nupur. I had a lot of fun speaking.